6 months ago I started my first commercial game, a dice roguelike battling game inspired by Balatro. A lot has happened since, from weird dice behavior over hundreds of people telling me that it's just Balatro to now the first playtests and a finished Steam page. Go check it out and wishlist the game. So today I want to look back at everything that happened and also show what's new since the last devlog. Quick recap for the people who haven't watched the first 2 devlogs, feel free to watch them after this video. In the first devlog I built a deterministic dice rolling system, which is really just a fancy way of saying being able to control how dice land. Which is not as easy as it sounds, that's also why it took like 7 attempts to get right. Anyways, in devlog 2 I added a battle system, a shop, poker chips that totally aren't jokers from Balatro, and some other stuff to fight all the "this is just Balatro" comments. And in devlog 3 we're turning this from a buggy tech demo into a game I might actually let other people play. Heavy emphasis on might. And I might also have a little surprise for you, so definitely watch until the end. So let's start with the most obvious missing thing that's not only missing in my game but also in real life: money. In the last video we implemented the shop and the poker chips, but we didn't really have a currency system, which means our shop was more like an all-you-can-eat buffet. So to fix that, let's spawn in some coins at the start of each round, reduce them by 1 for every turn the player takes to defeat the enemy, and give them the remaining coins as a reward. Of course we also need to give each poker chip a price based on how powerful they are. And now the player can actually buy chips with their hard-earned money. Another thing with these chips is that execution order matters, like a lot. For example, if you have a chip that adds 100 points and another chip that multiplies your score by 10, you want that multiplier to fire last for obvious reasons. So we should probably give the player the opportunity to drag their poker chips around, which is now possible. I also added enemy variety because before it was just Bob, and then Bob with more HP, and then Bob with even more HP. Now we have different enemies with different names and colors. They don't have any special abilities yet, but the framework is there. So expect future enemies that actually mess with your strategy. Sorry, Bob. We also need more variety when it comes to dice. Up until now, every die in the game was basically just a different color with no effect. So I added 2 new dice that actually do things as a proof of concept. I'm not gonna spoil exactly what they do, but it's just basic stuff like scoring twice or healing you. But the system is there, dice can now have real effects. Which brings us nicely to the next problem. We've now got chips that do things, dice that do things, multipliers, triggers, effects. There's a lot going on and nobody, including the playtesters and me, had any idea what any of it actually did. So I added an info panel. You hover over a chip or a die, get a name and a description. Easy. Except this also means I had to write a name and a description for every single item, which if you watch the last devlogs, you know I'm extremely qualified for. Okay, you know what really changes the feel of a game? Audio. But since I'm way too incompetent to make music myself, I got it made for the game by an incredibly talented composer called Meal. Massive thank you. The track absolutely slaps and I think I listened to it about 600 times during development. I also added sound effects for basically everything. Dice rolling, chips activating, scoring, damage, the whole thing. It's wild how much audio changes things, even though you can't hear it in these videos. Speaking of polish, tiny thing, but when your numbers get into the thousands and millions, they get extremely hard to read. So I decided to format big numbers to make them more readable. And suddenly the game looks 10 times more legitimate. Funny how that works. I also added a game over screen because if you can lose the game, you should probably know that you lost. Now you get a panel with some stats about your run. Run survived, highest score, all that. Now, here's the part of game dev that nobody warns you about. I need more content. So I added 7 more dice and 7 more poker chips. You'd think this is fun. New ideas, creativity, cool mechanics, but it's actually the same loop 14 times in a row. Come up with an idea, make a material, draw a sprite, set it up in Unity, write a description, test it, realize it's broken, fix it, test it again, realize it's overpowered, nerf it, test it again, repeat 14 times. It takes way longer than you'd think and it's not glamorous, but that's how games actually get made. I'm also not gonna talk about all the new dice and chips. I guess you'll have to wait until the game is out. You can wishlist it on Steam to get notified. Oh, and previously, once you bought a poker chip, you were stuck with it forever, which which is dumb, so I made them removable. Easy fix. Except now every chip also needs a removable sprite, because of course they do, because making art is so much fun. But I have one big announcement to make. For 6 months, this game has been called the Dice Game, Dice Roguelike, not-just-Balatro. One person suggested that on YouTube and I'm still recovering. But now it's called Aletra. It comes from alea, the Latin word for die, and yes, it sounds suspiciously close to Balatro. I just thought it's funny. Okay, moving on. Every game needs a settings menu, so I built one. Now you can change things like music volume or screen resolution. Oh god. I also spent time on general polish, idle animations on the dice and chips, so they don't just sit there like static models. And a full button redesign, so the UI doesn't look exactly like Balatro. Not flashy, but it's exactly the kind of stuff that separates a hobby project from a real game. And then we also need to build our game for others to play. And here's a little fun fact I learned at 2 AM. The Unity editor and the actual build are not the same thing. In the editor, everything works perfect. Dice line up, shop opens, beautiful. In the build, the dice just don't line up. And the shop straight up doesn't open. I spent way too much time fixing bugs that only existed in the build. Lessons learned: always test your builds early. Always. And finally, the biggest milestone of these 6 months, we ran our first round of playtesting. Massive thank you to everyone who played Aletra. Watching real humans play something I built was generally one of the most surreal experiences of my life. Seeing someone laugh or get frustrated or pull off a combo with stuff you made, there's nothing like it. I also managed to completely brick a computer with my game build. I don't know how that happened. Poor guy can't even reinstall Windows. At this point I should start making malware instead of games. If you want to experience this yourself and be a playtester in the future, hop in the Discord. Link is in the description. I'll be real with you though. These 6 months weren't always easy. There were weeks where motivation was completely gone, weeks where I genuinely thought about shelving the whole thing, but also weeks where I loved every single minute of it. If you'd want a video about the mental side of solo game development, the part nobody on YouTube actually talks about, let me know it in the comments. Could be an interesting one. So that's 6 months of developing my first commercial game solo. We've got a name, a Steam page, music, sound effects, 14 new items, a title screen with a settings menu, and the first real playtest round in the books. Obviously, we are still far from being finished, and there will definitely be more devlogs, so subscribe to not miss anything. Wishlist Aletra on Steam, link is in the description. It generally helps a ton. Join the Discord if you want to playtest or just hang out. Leave a like and comment, and see you in devlog 4, hopefully before another 3 months. No promises though.